Shelter 2 makes for an interesting study of instinct. Well, fake game instinct. The kind of instinct where every eventuality is planned for by the savvy developer, but the player feels as if they're playing free of the baby reins, acting spontaneously in the face of novelty. Shelter 2 is not good at simulating instinct. Look, I'll admit it, I nearly cried at the ending, in a stoic and manly way, of course. But I'm not here to discuss why I nearly cried at Shelter 2. I'm here to discuss why I wasn't bawling my eyes out at Shelter 2. The potential was there. Shelter 1 was a special thing for the most part. Everyone got rather beside themselves at the chance to play as a mother badger, not a cybernetic spy badger developed by DICE to win Middle Eastern conflicts, not an anthropomorphized hedgehog or a genetically altered raccoon, just a badger. The premise got people talking, but it was in the delivery that Might and Delight went above and beyond. You don't just control a badger like some stripy drone over European countryside. You are the badger. Objective markers are not to be seen, replaced instead by visually significant points on the horizon. Shelter's bare-bones look is intuitive, instinctive. Because I imagine badgers don't have objectives in the human sense. They don't think to themselves, I must journey north to that fab old set I used to have, collecting precisely 5 pieces of fruit on the way. Each level is linear, but in stripping back the UI and designing each stage to naturally highlight objects of significance, Shelter creates the feeling of snuffling from place to place using only your badger instincts. The first warning that Might and Delight had chosen a different path for Shelter 2 came half a second in. Text? I'm a lynx! I have the reading age of a blind, unborn dyslexic. Text means as much to me as quantum gravitation, and yet text crops up for every momentous event. Kittens pop out, kittens grow up, kittens bugger off. Text, text, text. And text is fine. It's not badly written, the font's kinda nice. But it's not very lynxy. It's not very badgery. When you escape the opening wolf pack in Shelter 2, the objective isn't find a safe place to have your kittens. It's follow these glowing game markers. But again, I'm a lynx. The only way the stars would speak is if I wandered through a field of catnip. I fully expect that the paths marked by stars are intended to represent Mother Lynx acting on instinct, but Shelter 1 allowed you to act on instinct, working towards whatever objective was implied to be the most important. Food if your cubs were muling, or, if you're travelling, the great tree on the edge of an otherwise featureless plain. The course was predetermined, but you followed it because it felt right, not because you were told. Shelter 2 offered Might and Delight the opportunity to take implicit objectives to a new level and prove their expertise in open world design which directed through suggestion, not instruction. But Shelter 2 appeals to the human in you, not the lynx. The world itself is without peer. The experimental papercraft of the first game has matured into a self-confident visual identity, which, despite the colour coordination of a charity shop clothes rail, strikes you in the details and the great sweeping vistas which are new to Shelter 2. More haunting still are the seasonal shifts, sudden dramatic repaperings of all 3 vast open zones. The artistic achievement is such that you'll want any excuse to spend time here. But the game never gives it to you. It's the difficulty that does for it. In Shelter 1, you weren't just being drawn onwards by cleverly accentuated landmarks, you were being pushed forwards by the risk of starvation and circling predators. In Shelter 2, your kittens aren't all that hungry, and your primary food source is rabbits, which breed like guinea pigs. It's possible to support all 4 kittens on the wildlife in a circle around your den. That great big open world is nice, but the animal instinct isn't to explore, but to chill by the buffet. Lynxes are pretty darn high up the food chain too. Wolves will go for you and your cubs, but I only ever encountered them in the mountain zone. So don't go there. It's a game about the circle of life, but starvation is not a real risk. Indeed, the veritable banquet around your den discourages adaptation, and predators are not a threat. How then do you instill a sense of animal purpose? How do you make exploring the landscape attractive to a lynx who couldn't be better fed by a zoo? According to Shelter 2, collectibles. Sticks, leaves, feathers, skulls, mushrooms. Collectibles. I'm going to allow a few seconds for that to sink in. I'm a lynx! What do I want with collectibles? Sure, my cats bring me gifts, but in the form of the stiff corpses of country wildlife. Not once have they brought me a complete set of exactly 37 pebbles. It's contextually irrelevant busy work. Collectibles never drove me onwards. They never challenged the survival of my kittens. They don't bring anything to a game about the shared experience of motherhood. Checklists like this are uniquely human constructs, and where in Shelter 1 every action was a facet of badgerdom, in the sequel there is no illusion that you are doing anything but steer a lynx-shaped avatar through tasks designed to kill time while your kits grow up. There's a sweet spot in instructional design between hand-holding and tea with the Riddler, and Shelter 2 has ended up on both sides. Where it does try to abstract threats to fit the intellect of a lynx, it conveys meaning badly. Every so often, the colours would go a bit funny, I'd lose my ability to smell, and animals would run to the next zone. Sometimes cubs would collapse and refuse to move. Accompanying this was a sort of humming noise and a giant brown solid clipping through the distant part of the landscape. If you approach the brown box, you lie down, the screen goes black, and when it clears, the box is gone and all is right with the world again. I have no idea what this is, or if I'm meant to be scared of it. Because of this, the honest brutality of Shelter is gone. When a kitten keels over through no discernible fault of your own, you don't feel loss and sorrow. The game has cheated you. Your kids are a burden that you could do just fine without. When a game punishes the player, the chain of causality has to be crystal clear. Shelter 2 is almost worth the cost just for sightseeing, but it lacks any implicit, animalistic objective to engage you in the world. Situated in the middle of the food chain, Lynx is on a journey of survival, guided lightly by the hand of the developer, would have made not just a worthy sequel to Shelter, but an enduring entry in a genre typically more about death than life. As it is, I feel the developers misunderstood what made Shelter instinctively brilliant. Damn, I was really looking forward to that one, but we persevere. I will be panning for gold same time next week with a review of Pillars of Eternity, and in the meantime you can keep up with me on Twitter at @rerollgaming and Facebook at reroll.angusgmorrison for reasons.